All right, everybody, welcome tonight, the Community Development Meeting, Monday, August 31st. We have two items on the agenda for the community development portion of the meeting. The first item is the matter of a new liquor license for Elyria Sunoco Gas LLC, doing business as Elyria Sunoco Gas, 404 East Avenue and Outbuilding, Elyria. This would be a Class C1, C2, D6. According to the Office of the Clerk, we've received no feedback from the police department, so at this point, everything looks good. Mr. Sarah.
Through you, what does it mean by outbuilding?
Storage building,
Storage building.
What's that have to do with a liquor license?
because they're storing it in there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, good question. Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, this is the Sunoco that sits on the corner of 4th and East Avenue,
Correct.
and they're just now requesting a liquor license?
Well, there was a change of ownership.
Please again.
There was a change of ownership at
Thank you.
some point earlier this year.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
So new to these owners or operators, new to them.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If Mrs. Mitchell?
Mr. Chairman, seeing that there are no additional questions, I will make a motion that the city does not request a hearing.
Second. Correct. A motion has been made and seconded.
Call for the question.
Call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't realize that's what you were doing. Okay, item 2 for community development is the matter of a conditional use permit for K. Hovanian Homes, 10516 Indian Hollow Road, Elyria. I believe we have someone that's going to speak in regards to this topic. Okay.
Hello.
Go right ahead, sir. Just please just state your name and address for the record.
Conditional use permit for K. Hovanian Homes, 10516. Hello, Dale Haywood, Atwell Engineering.
Okay, anytime you want to speak your mind, go right ahead.
I'm actually here to represent the project. I'm available to answer any questions you might have, but to summarize the request, K. Hovnanian Homes is applying for RPUD zoning for a 230 lot single family residential subdivision. It's located south of Southwood Drive with entrances off of Indian Hollow Road. The land is currently zoned R1, and the request is for the RPUD zoning.
Thank you. Is there anybody on the committee that has any questions? Mrs. Mitchell.
This is currently with planning.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, in speaking with Mrs. Billman, it's my understanding this matter will be before the Planning Commission next week prior to the full council meeting. So it's pending with Planning Commission at this time.
Are there any other questions?
Mr.
Yes, Mrs. Mitchell.
I guess I'm confused as to why it would come to us before it goes to Planning Commission.
Oh, well, through you, Mr. Chairman, there's nothing in, procedurally that would preclude it. It is obviously would be up to this committee if you want to wait, if you want the committee to wait until Planning Commission issues its determination, and if it has any recommendations or, conditions that it places upon its approval. Otherwise, what I would recommend is that if this committee is comfortable with the application, that it could be made contingent on what Planning Commission has to say, and that we would hold the final ordinance to be contingent on what Planning Commission has to say.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Law Director Deary. Any other questions, or anybody on the panel has any questions? Mr. Baird.
Yeah, is there a timing issue? Sometimes we have done that in the past. And I assume a developer wants to get going this time of the year, and they wait, or of course, we'll have our meeting next Tuesday. I'm not sure that's but if you're waiting for Planning Commission, you don't know when their meeting's going to be, or I don't anyway.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, my understanding the Planning Commission actually will be earlier in the day next Tuesday. So earlier in the day before the full council meeting.
I think that we could probably do it conditionally on waiting till that, and at the council meeting that could be put in at the last minute to go ahead and approve. I don't think there's a problem with it. I just hate to, we're trying to help businesses, and I think this does it. So that'd be my recommendation.
Okay,
Chairman,
thank
through
you.
I don't believe there's a problem with it either. I was just questioning why it came to us before Planning Commission, because that's not the normal course of things. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay,
So thank you.
sure, thank you, appreciate the input. Is there any other questions or concerns or comments? Does the administration have would they want to chime in at all? No? Okay, thank you. Well, at that case, whatever the pleasure of the committee is, I think we have a nice suggestion by Mr. Baird and Mrs. Mitchell in regards to contingent. If that's the motion as you want to go forward, decide what you want to do.
Mr. Sarah has his hand up, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
I was just going to make a motion that we go ahead and pass it contingent on the building department or Planning Commission on Tuesday.
Okay, motion has been made.
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Mitchell. Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Mark. Yeah, no, we're going to go right into have Vic join. When you're ready, you good? Okay. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Stewart to please call finance.
I'll call the finance order.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. We have 4 items on the agenda tonight, and the first one will be the matter of the fiscal year 2021 Community Block Grant Action Plan. This is a public hearing. You are hereby given notice that a public hearing will be held on Monday, August 31st, 2020, in Elyria City Council Chambers, Elyria City Hall, 131 Court Street, Elyria, Ohio, at 6 p.m. concerning the city's fiscal year 2021 Community Development Block Grant program and consolidated annual update and analysis impedance, or updated of 2021. The purpose of the public hearing is to obtain views of citizens on the city's community development and housing needs, and to provide the opportunity for citizens' participation in determining the community development and housing activities for which assistance will be sought. Ashley.
Thank you. As noted, that this is the first of 3 public hearings for the 2021 CDBG program. The goal tonight is just to kind of give you an overview of where we're at with our current money, what we're expecting in our planning process from now until December, and give you some key dates like we do on an annual basis. So for 2020, the activities that we budgeted for were administration and planning, housing rehab, code enforcement, public facility and infrastructure improvements, fair housing, public service through city youth programming and senior programming, as well as subrecipient grants to various nonprofit agencies. So to date, we have expended 33% in administration, 100% on the tennis courts, 100% on the playground equipment, 5% on the South Park Trail, 0% on the sidewalks that were left over from prior year, 5% on our slum and blight activity, 0% for the library. That is in process though. 36% in housing rehab, 20% in code enforcement, and 5% in public service activities. So keep in mind, this is what we've paid out. We do have additional funds encumbered. We completed our annual report to HUD in August. That was submitted at the end of August for the 2019 program year. From the initial results of that report, it indicates that the city continues to perform in a timely manner, meeting goals. We were under our 15% public service cap. We were under our 20% cap for admin. The city did receive $19,518 in program income for the 2019 program year. So we were within our $25,000 estimate that HUD requires for that. So like I said, tonight is the first public hearing. We are going to have applications available on the city's website to request funds. Those applications are due October 1st by noon. The applications are going to be posted either by the end of the day today or first thing tomorrow morning. We also mailed funding requests to various nonprofits that have inquired about funding throughout the year. Those who have received funding in the past or those who have applied for funding in the past. On Wednesday, September 9th, our department is going to hold a public informational meeting for anyone interested in if they have questions on filling out these applications, concerns about their projects, et cetera. Any applications received after the 12 o'clock noon deadline will not be considered for funding, and further incomplete applications would not be considered for funding as we have decided in the past. A second public hearing is scheduled on October 13th at 6 p.m. The purpose of that public hearing would be to review those funding requests and provide any additional updates on our current funding. A third and final public hearing would be held at another committee meeting on October 26th at 6 p.m. And at that time is when we would ask for the committee to kind of decide on a draft budget. Once the committee decides on that draft budget, we will put the plan out for public review and comment for 30 days, and then bring any comments back to you before you make a final decision on what you want to fund for the 2021 program year. I'm here for any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much. We'll start out, see if there's any questions. Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I don't have a question as much as a comment. Ashley, to you and your staff, I want to say thank you. You guys make this process so easy. So and I know the committee does as well, we appreciate all your hard work and kudos on the good report from HUD. And we were laughing when you said what the deadline was, because we mean it this time. We mean it. We're going to stick to the deadline this time.
Amen.
Thank you.
Well,
Amen.
thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, then at this time, I would ask, since this is a public hearing, are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Are there any opponents? Seeing none, unless there's any additional comments, I declare the first public hearing has been held. Okay, item 2 is the matter of request to forgive a loan. Mrs. Scott.
Thank you. Ms. Riggins entered into an agreement through the city's housing rehab program in the amount of $14,520 on December 15th, 1993. The terms of the agreement required repayment in that amount. At the time of the request submitted to council, Ms. Riggins was under a purchase agreement. The property did transfer ownership in July 2020, and at that time, the $14,520 became due and payable. She is requesting reimbursement of the program income that has been received. A settlement statement was not provided with the original referral, but I did leave a copy at all of your desks for review to verify that sufficient funds were received to repay this amount. Therefore, Community Development does not recommend reimbursement to the homeowner.
Thank you. Are there any questions from either committee? Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, for what reason would she even think that she gets this money back?
She just figured she would ask the question.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion from the community development portion. Mrs. Mitchell.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we do not forgive this loan.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded.
Question?
Question on the motion. All those in favor of this motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a good motion from finance?
So move that we do not refund.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Baird, second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, the next item is a matter of for a request to forgive a loan. Mrs. Scott.
Thank you. Ms. Ruby Williams entered into a loan agreement through our housing rehab program in the amount of $25,000 on June 1st of 2007. There was a mortgage credit. The terms of the agreement therefore required repayment in the amount of $19,380.60. Ms. Williams passed away in 2020. Mr. Robert Williams, her son and owner of the property, is requesting forgiveness of the home or of the lien to either refinance or possibly sell the home. I would like for you to note that Ms. Williams and her son Robert Williams were both on the deed at the time that this loan was taken out. Mr. Williams did not sign the rehab loan agreement. He did not sign the mortgage documents, the promissory note, or the truth in lending. That being said, Community Development recommends releasing the lien on the property.
Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, based on, I see what she's saying.
So just as long as we're clear, so the amount of the lien is $19,380. He was on the deed. He should have signed it. And he's looking to possibly refinance it or sell it, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, from my vantage point, if he's looking to resell it and he sells it, he should repay the loan. I think that's, and he should have signed it on the deed. I would defer to the law director if she wants to make comments in regards to it. But one too many times we kind of are forgiving the loans, and I understand their situations, but if he plans on selling the home, then I would feel there's an obligation for him to repay back the loan.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So the Law Director's Office did take a look at this situation. We also did some research. So because, in this situation, Mr. Williams was the owner at the time. He was co-owner of this property. I'm going to call them, just for simplicity's sake, so Robert, who is the son, co-owned this with his mother, Ruby. For whatever reason, this predates me, predates Mrs. Scott, predates many of you.
Probably a decent home.
Ruby entered the housing rehab program, it appears perhaps without Robert's knowledge, but maybe with Robert's knowledge, but they were co-owners, and yet Robert did not sign any of the documents for the housing rehab program, including the lien, truth in lending, promissory notes, and everything. So based upon the research that my office has done, the mortgage appears to have been extinguished because it was only on Ruby's portion of the property, due to the fact that Robert did not sign it. Robert was not her spouse, he was her son, and I'm not saying that had he been her spouse, that necessarily would have made a difference, but in this situation, it was my office's recommendation is that this mortgage interest be released. And that's why we are here before council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Mrs. Mitchell?
Seeing no additional questions or comments, I will make a motion that we forgive the loan.
Okay, the motion has been made to forgive the loan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sarah.
Call for the question.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from finance?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second. Second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Baird?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with the analysis there. I think once you have a loan, and he wants to sell the house, yeah, I'm not sure why he shouldn't repay the funds. The legal description, as law director, was because he didn't sign a note. That was, whose responsibility was that?
Well, arguably, it would have been the community development department as the entity giving the mortgage.
So is your opinion then that because we didn't do it properly, that we shouldn't receive our money back? Is that, I think that's what I'm hearing.
That's in a nutshell. There's a case out of the 1st Appellate District where Judge, now Supreme Court Justice DeWine, stated, and I quote, "Death of the mortgaging joint tenant extinguishes the mortgage." And there is a lengthy analysis that states that where one joint tenant grants an interest in property, that interest is subject to the survival of that joint tenant. Judgment is very clear and contains nearly identical facts to these that we have right here.
So this is a technicality, but based on the opinion from the Supreme Court? I think that's what you said?
Well, it was an appellate decision at that time, but based upon the research that my office has done, it is my recommendation that we do not have much in the way of standing if we were to try to enforce this against this remaining property owner.
Like it tape. Okay, if that's the case, I'll agree with that, but I don't like it, but
Right.
I won't fight it.
No, I would concur with Mr. Baird, because I was on the onset of that was the case, that if he were to sell it just to turn the house and then do that without paying the city, then, but if that's the opinion of the law director, then we'll move forward.
And through you, Chair and Chair, not to say that I'm delighted by it either.
Mr. Tolet, sorry.
I have a question. So if I'm on a mortgage by myself, I would get a loan from the city, and then I would get married afterward, and I die, my spouse could waive the loan? That's not right.
That's not what I'm saying, because it has to do with who was the owner at the time.
I was the owner originally.
The sole owner, correct.
Correct. And so you're saying the problem is we didn't check the title at the original
I don't know that
loan
we
date?
did not, but what I do know is that we did not get all current owners to sign off on the mortgage at the same time.
And you're confident that they were both on the home title at the origination of this loan?
At the time that it was extended, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've already had a vote from community development.
Is there any further discussion from finance? Mr. Pileski?
Can we forgive half the loan? Just a thought.
I'm sure, through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Plesky, I mean, anything's possible, but legally, I don't know why this gentleman would agree to that. If it were me, I would not.
Especially now after we had a conversation.
We've given away money like this before, because the legal costs and so on involved with these sometimes is more than what the cost is, so I move the question.
Okay. Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, we have one more item for the joint meeting here tonight, and it would be the matter of amending the EZ agreement with the shops on 57. Moina?
Yes, through you. This applicant, if you recall, it's the property on the corner of Griswold and 57. There was a vacant building, and a developer came in to rehab the property, and he brought in 2 tenants, which originally was going to be Riverview Pizza and MJ Sandwich. MJ Sandwich did move in. He did complete the project. He did do the hiring. We granted an enterprise zone agreement on this, and Riverview Pizza decided that they didn't want to come in. And so the developer found another tenant, which is Java Ventures, or Big B Coffee, as you know. So at this time, we're asking council to amend the agreement to release Riverview Pizza of its obligations and to put Java Adventures in its place.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to read the complete committee report. We have considered the matter of amending the EZ agreement with the shops on 57. Riverview Pizza has requested to be released. This would be an ordinance amending the enterprise zone agreement with the shops on 57. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Mr. Sarah.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jesse. Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from finance?
Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird. Second by Mr. Gillette. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Yes, yeah.
Okay, seeing that there's no further business for the community development, I would accept a motion to adjourn community development.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Questions?
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Community development is adjourned.
He's missing.
Okay, we're going to continue on with finance. First item on the agenda is the delinquent stormwater fees from 2018 to through 2019, a resolution approving a list of delinquent stormwater fees to be certified to the Lorraine County Auditor. State emergency applies. Can I get a motion to get on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Davis. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gillette. Discussion.
I wouldn't be good on Jeopardy.
Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, every year, we bring to you the stormwater bills that haven't been paid over a certain time period or a certain amount. This year, the list is 414 pages long, with about 20 people per page, for a total amount of about $142,000 that hasn't been paid. What we did was we went back and we only selected people that were over 180 days past due and greater than $7.95. There are some areas in there where it transitions between houses and between owners. So we're trying to clean up the overall list by doing this, but it is 414 pages long.
Any questions for Mr. Schneider? So you'll accompany that list, obviously, with this ordinance is passed. Any other questions, discussion?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Of a question? Well, I think we've already have a motion, just need to just call for a question.
Question then.
Ms.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Chair, this is an emergency due to the fact
Yes,
we have to
yes.
get it.
In order to get it filed with the county, we need to pass this as an emergency.
I believe that's
September
what
14th deadline? Okay.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion?
No.
Can I call for someone to call for the question? Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 2, we've considered the matter of the final assessments to replace the private sewer service, a resolution approving the final assessments for the replacement of the private sewer services to Lorraine County Auditor. Standard emergency applies. Can I get a motion to get on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Discussion, Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This year, we had eight people utilize our sanitary funds to help improve their, whether it be their sanitary line to their house or drainage around their house that directly impacts the sanitary sewers. With the ordinance that we have on the books allows the city to essentially loan funds out to make improvements to their sanitary sewer. This is part of our overall, also helps our overall long-term control plan with the EPA. So it looks good that we're out there giving residents a way to take care of the issues that are their responsibility, but we front the money for them. It's a zero-interest loan that's paid back through assessment over 10 years. So we have 8 this year, and probably in the future we'll probably have a lot more the way we're going.
Any questions for Mr. Schneider?
So moved, Mr. Chairman. There's a question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carried. Item number 3. We've considered the matter of the final assessments to replace private water service. A resolution approving the final assessments for the replacement of private water service to the Lorain County Auditor. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This year, we only had one person utilize the water fund to replace their water service. This program is utilized when we're replacing either water lines and things of that nature in the area, and if we disrupt their service and their service breaks on their side, and typically that happens because of the old service is galvanized or something that if you just touch it, they break. But we've only had one person this past year utilize our service, and as far as to replace their line, we do have a few projects going out this year that will impact water mains, and we'll see how that how that goes forward. A lot of the problems we find are always the galvanized services out there. So the copper lines, contractors, they can tie into those real easy, so that's not an issue. But we did have one person, and we do ask that this be an emergency as well.
All right, very good. Is there any further discussion with Mr. Tolet?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, one quick technical question. Where does the homeowner, where is the start of theirs and where does the city's begin?
Sure. The city has the main, and from the main to the corporation stop or curb stop, which is in the tree lawn. So at that valve where we shut your water on and off in the grass, that is where the city ends. We own that valve. From that valve, really from the line to the house, that is the private property owner's responsibility to maintain by ordinance.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Item number 4, we consider the matter of amending the agreement to reflect the 2020-2021 deferred rate to the Lorain County Rural Water Authority, and ordinance amending the Lorain County Water Authority agreement per the attached exhibit. Standard emergency applies. Can I get a motion to get on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Ms. Connor.
This is just an update of the ongoing contract that we have with Lorain County Rural Water. The agreement was written quite many years back. It's just that for the area over Chestnut Commons, there are locations over there where we bill for water and turn over a small portion of it to Lorain County Rural Water on a quarterly basis.
Is there any discussion for Ms. Connor what's being presented in front of us tonight?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 5. We've considered amendment to the North Ridgeville Water Contract in ordinance to amend the North Ridgeville Water Agreement to temporarily do away with the mandatory minimum during the 2020 year. State of emergency applies. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet,
Second.
second by Ms. Davis. Ms. Connor?
Through you, Mr. Chair. North Ridgeville had approached us. They had a problem with their Center Ridge construction project, and were not able to use the water from that site. We were billing them for a minimum, which was about $45,000 a month, even though they were not doing it. So it was agreed upon to relieve that minimum charge for the year of 2020.
Mr. Tolet?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, did the city of Elyria have any expense at all in this that we need to recoup?
No, I don't believe so.
Thank you.
Mr. Baird, did you have a comment?
No, I was going to say, that's too bad we lose that revenue, and they didn't get it. We shouldn't charge them for it, so.
Right.
Ms. Davis, did you have a comment you wanted to ask? Ms. Davis?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So they weren't able to use it. Was it our fault that they weren't using the water? Because in a resident, if you got property sitting, you have to pay the water bill no matter what. So if you use it, if it's our fault that they couldn't use it, I can understand it. But if they didn't use it just because they're doing some construction, I don't agree with it.
You know, it was not our fault. It had to do with their construction on that Center Ridge Road project, my understanding.
So, now the Center Ridge, that's going all the way from, obviously, to the limits of the project. There's a lot of businesses in there that have been serviced up and through. I'm sure they had to get water somehow for those businesses on Center Ridge Road, right? Yeah, I mean, there's the water, they're not, I mean, they have water. There's this, like, they didn't shut off the water there. Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So you're saying they didn't use any water, not one drop of water?
Nowhere near the minimum. It was, currently they're up, $45,000 is about the minimum for that Center Ridge Road connection. They're up to about $36,000 now, so they're coming back using that water. But during 2019, there was very little used.
Mr. Chair, through you, then we should bill them for what they did use. I think, my opinion.
Yeah, Law Director Deary.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's my understanding, and please, Ms. Connor, correct me if I misspeak, but we will be billing them for what they use.
Yes.
We are just not holding them to the minimum.
Over and above.
For this year.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
That's a little.
Yes, they're not getting anything for free. We're just not saying, okay, I'm just throwing a number out there.
We were billing them for water that was not used.
Right.
Because they had a minimum in the contract.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
A lot of water.
Item number 6. We've considered the matter of the FOP contract. An ordinance ratifying and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement by and between the city of Elyria and the FOP, Ohio Labor Council Incorporated Supervisors Unit and declaring emergency. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis,
Second.
second by Mr. Jesse. Director Firestein, you go over the contract and what's before us?
Yes, through the chair to members of the committee, I appreciate you addressing this concern. Really, the contract is we were approached by the FOP, which is the supervisors for the police department for EPD, and they offered a rollover of their contracts. No language change, nothing additional to what they had already had in their contract. Now, granted, their increases came from shift differential.
Could you take your mask down? That's hard to understand. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I was trying to keep it on just so to recap, the FOP contract deals with the supervisors within the EPD. They approached us after EPPA signed their contract. The raises that they may have received from that are through shift differential. So when a patrolman's officer's wage goes up through shift differential, they receive an increase. But in terms of this contract, they approach us for a rollover freeze of no contract change, nothing additional that they should receive. So really, it's just a continuation. So that's why it's in front of you today. There's not much of a recap because there's not much of a change.
Okay.
I'm sorry about the mask.
Is there any further questions to Mr. Firestein, or?
I'll call for the question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 7. We've considered the matter of the CARES Act program. An ordinance authorizing the adoption of the CARES Act guidelines. Would this be for the small business? Because it's not really defined on. So this would be the guidelines for the small business grants. I guess that's how we should make it for the ordinance, or? Unless there's a difference. I just wanted to make sure, because this is the guidelines just for the small businesses, not the overall guidelines. I mean, I just want to make.
Small business grant program.
So,
Is that correct?
through you, attached to the referral, it was program guidelines for the essential services, or we coined it as public services, and the small business program. So that's what we were requesting before you today.
Attached to that.
Okay. So today is just for. Right.
Referral for each.
Right. So, I'm sorry, Ashley. I guess I just want to make sure that we're getting the committee report right. So right now, how it's presented is an ordinance authorizing the adoption of said CARES Act guidelines. But, and maybe I'm duplicating myself, but is this sort of the businesses and the essentials, or just for the small, are we going to be coming back for each?
This is for the essential services for the public service activities, and I can go over that with you real quick, and the small business program as well.
So through you, Mr. Chair, two different programs?
Essentially, yeah, but we put it all together as one
Okay.
CARES Act program.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I would just, for council's purposes, and then for purposes of getting the legislation together, I would ask for just two different reports. One for what I'll call essential services, and the second, just for my shorthand, and then the second for the small business, they're grants, correct? Part of it, I mean, everything's a grant, nothing's a loan.
Correct.
Okay, so my shorthand, small business grants being the one, essential services two. Is that for individuals?
The essential services is we were looking with the subrecipient funding agreements like we do with our other public service activities for CDBG. They have others run those programs.
Okay, so I would say yes, two, because they're two different end users and it's two different categories. I would ask for two different reports. Carol, do you need me to go get one?
Carol, do you have one?
I mean, I can go run through you.
No, I just wanted to make sure we're in the guidelines here. So I guess, yeah. All right, so we have considered the matter of the CARES Act program in order to authorize the adoption of the CARES Act guidelines for small business. Right, so we'll do this for the small business, and then we'll do the next one for that. This would be the small business grants. Is that sufficient to say it that way? I want to make sure I get the terminology right, so.
Yes, through you. So, yes, so if I'm understanding you correctly, this first discussion is going to be for the small business piece, and then we'll go into a second discussion for the essential services.
Right, I'm only going by what
Okay.
says the guidelines for the businesses, so I'm just using that as the.
Yeah.
So can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Ms. Davis, now that we work through there. So, Ms. Calvert, can you take us to this policy that's in front of us, program?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have, council has allocated $320,000 to be used for COVID-related assistance, small business grants, up to $50,000 as the program is written. So we have created a process where the applications go out. It is incumbent upon the applicant to demonstrate the need of reconfiguring operations, reopening operations, or direct COVID response. And we do require supporting documentation in whatever that specific need is that they're asking for. So they need to supply cost estimates or receipts or payroll, proof of payroll, that kind of thing. So as we take those applications in and process them, if they are in need of, we are in need of additional information and it wasn't a complete application, the applicant is notified. And all complete applications are brought in front of the Elyria Economic Development Committee. So at that point, the Economic Development Committee will review, and there are three options. The application can be denied, it can be deferred for further information, or it can be approved. In the event that it is approved, it will go through basically more of an underwriting process. So the staff will then go ahead and confirm with more documentation that the request is appropriate and we can prove it. And at that point, when that is confirmed, we will issue the PO to have the check sent to the business owner. And then if there is monitoring required, so for instance, if there is a payroll request and we need to make sure that that payroll was spent, we will go out, monitor, and get that documentation. Each applicant, each grantee will have to have an individual grant agreement, where we will write that into the agreement, that there's an expectation that it be used for what the stated purpose, or they will have to pay it back to the city.
Mr. Tolet.
To get into the specifics, is this first come, first serve, or will it be divided equally among all submitted by the proposed deadline, which are two totally separate things? Can you go through the explanation of that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. This program, the Small Business Grant Program, does not have a deadline for applications.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The Small Business Grant Program does not have a deadline for applications. So we wrote it that all applications will be reviewed on a first come, first served basis, but they will be accepted on a rolling basis. So to get in the weeds on the process a little bit, I will accept all applications on a Thursday by before midnight, will be then put on the agenda and sent to the Elyria Economic Development Committee Monday for review on standing meetings for Mondays. So the Economic Development Committee gets all the application materials and an agenda Friday morning for review on Monday afternoon. And we just carry that process through each week. So we document the date and time it was received and completeness. So it must be complete in order to get that slot on date and time.
Through you, Mr. Chair, on the application, does it say first come, first serve? And what I'm getting at, and please, this is a hypothetical. If there's a one-person bicycle shop that does their own accounting versus a large 500-employee company that has to send it out for accounting work to complete their application, they could be farther down the line and more in need. So as many of these details that you can get on the application so they know, hey, you need to turn this quick, please. I think that's very important.
Yes. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. It does not explicitly say first come, first served basis in the application. It does say on a rolling basis, which is technically a little bit different. It does say first come, first served basis where you download the application online. It does say it on the online, yes.
Is there any other discussion regarding this? I think this is kind of a program that's kind of similar to the Community Development Block Grant. We're trying to help out. So Donna, what ways are we trying to advertise this as far as getting people to know about it? Because I think there's been some conversations with others that maybe not everybody is aware of maybe this. And I know we're doing it through our website and other mechanisms. Can you share that with us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. We did have a small video on Channel 5 News where we announced the program. We sent emails out to the business owners that we have worked with and have contact information for. We advertised it on social media. We told our partners like the Chamber of Commerce and the Small Business Development Center that we were doing it so they could make referrals as necessary. And then word of mouth, press release and word of mouth. So I know I've gotten referrals from some people who've talked to council people, which I very much appreciate. Thank you. And that's really how we've done it. So I think, again, the plan is when we have those first applicants that are approved, we'll issue another press release as we expect that we'll have some funding left over after those are approved.
Is there Mr. Tolet?
One more question and comment, and I think this would be for Mr. Pileski. It's my understanding now that the second round of CARES Act funding is in process. So there's a potential that we will go through this again. Is that correct, Mr. Pileski?
Yes, my understanding that we are expecting another 800,000.
Right. So there's just ways that we can continue to, it's word of mouth seems to be, and Facebook seems to be a great mechanism to get this out, but really express it to everybody out there, we have this money to help them out in their needs and get the application process going so that it benefits, everybody, so we can, help everybody out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We have a couple radio stations in our area that's pretty good. I'm just curious to know that do you submit information to the radio station letting people know about the grants? Because everybody's not on social media.
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I know that we issue a press release, and I'm not sure if the radio stations pick up on that and they're on the email. So I'll have to look into that and respond, but that is a great idea.
Sure.
Thank
and
you.
Maybe that's just another mechanism that we can use with the Chronicle just to make sure they express it again if they got to run another ad or something along those lines. So is there any further discussion regarding this?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. And my understanding is, too, once these funds are getting allocated over here, that the administration will come in and bring forward that to discuss that. I think we talked about the last council meeting that they would say what companies were getting, benefiting from this. Okay. Thank you, Don. The next item here is we've considered the matter of the CARES Act guidelines, essential services, an ordinance approving the adoption of the CARES Act guidelines for the essential services grants. State of emergency applies due to restrictions and time constraints of the Federal CARES Act funding. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Ms. Scott?
Thank you. As previously discussed, with these essential services dollars, proposed activities could include rent, mortgage, utility assistance payments, food delivery services, technology improvements, job training, et cetera. So the idea was to put out funding applications like we do with the CDBG and like we did with the CDBG COVID funding, and receive those applications from different nonprofit organizations or agencies that would provide services that would be directly related to COVID response. And we would manage those subrecipient agreements like we do with the CDBG COVID. So we would be monitoring them, doing the financial tracking on them. The documentation would flow through the Community Development Department, et cetera. So we currently do have an application online right now that is due September 1st from various nonprofits for these subrecipient agreements. And the intent would be to have the funding request reviewed and then presented before the mayor's office like we did with the CDBG COVID funding to get the money out the door.
Ms. Scott, and maybe through Mr. Pileski, as far as the timelines to either allocate or encumber these funds, has that been identified yet? I know that they were tossing around the idea of October the 15th. Has that been confirmed, or Ms. Culver here is in the discussion with the law director? She can weigh in on it, but Mr. Pileski?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe they have determined that allocate means budget or appropriate, not encumbered. Okay. That the October 15th is a deadline to have everything allocated.
Okay.
And I believe that December 28th is the deadline to have everything spent. If at that point in time it's not spent, I believe it's got to be returned to the county.
Okay.
And I think that includes the second round is also the additional money that's coming in.
The same dates?
I believe so.
Oh, wow.
I haven't seen anything different than that.
Is there any other discussion for the essentials portion of this? Scott, did you have anything more to add?
No, unless you have any additional questions, I'd be more than happy to answer anything.
So right now, no one's come up yet for this particular item as for the essentials?
Pardon, can you?
No one's come up for this, for the essential services as of yet? Any residents or anything like that? No one at this particular time?
No, we currently have funding requests out to have nonprofits handle those essential services.
Okay.
We have had various discussions with different nonprofits for, technology, improvements to facilities to help with youth that are doing online schooling, food delivery, et cetera. So,
is there any further discussion? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so is those applications online also?
Through you, yes, they are on the City of Elyria website.
Any other further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 8. We've considered the matter of the purchase of a new sanitation truck. This might have to be amended because I guess we have to know where the funds would be coming from, but as far as the committee report, but can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Jesse, second by Mr. Chalette. Mr. I, if you'd like to come on and come up. We've had some discussion about it, limited in regards to the need that is over and through there, and then I'll give Mr. Jesse a moment here. He can speak about what he has in in his possession there as far as a good, feel-good story about that. So, Mr. I. Yep.
Good evening. I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the of us wanting to purchase a sanitation truck. I know I've been here before and discussed it with you. So if there's any further questions you have, concerns, I'm here for you to ask.
So, go ahead, Mr. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Yeah, if you recall, and I am looking back over at Derek in the corner over here, we had worked out financially that we were going to be able to do this in late February. We looked at how we were going to trim funds from the sanitation fund and that we would have enough money to do it. And then, of course, then the virus hit and a lot of things were put on hold. The need doesn't go away. And I know I've talked to Mr. Pileski, if you could comment on exactly how that looks in terms of the budget. I just think we can't afford to not do this. We all got the list of the inventory of their trucks and how old they are, so many of them from like 2010, 2012.
Correct.
And to continue providing the service that the residents expect, we need to have the proper equipment. We're already behind the 8 ball in terms of being on a rotation for new trucks as it is.
Mr. Pileski.
Through you, Mr. Chair. If memory serves me correctly, I believe the cost is about $335,000.
Yes, that's correct.
So just to put that into perspective, if we were to order the truck and I paid cash for it, that would wipe out a third of the cash fund balance in the sanitation fund. So if you choose to move forward, my recommendation would be, I think it takes about a year to 18 months to take delivery.
Yes.
So if you choose to move forward, order it now. Next year, when the Chestnut Commons connector notes mature, I can increase that note issuance to cover the cost of the truck, but then at the same time, we'll have to make a yearly annual payment of principal and interest. And that being said, we still need to have a discussion about that fund. The fund is doing a little bit better this year based on some of the changes that I think have been made in the department as far as recycling, what have you. But with the AFSCME union undergoing contract negotiations, what have you, I still think we need to address the rates. Right now, there is no future rates proposed or approved for the sanitation fund, so that's something we still need to look at because it is doing better, but it's not great. So, but that would be my recommendation if you want to. And I think at that time, I think we need to determine ahead of time how many trucks we actually need. Are we going to be buying a truck every year for the next few years? That way it gives us some idea when we go to look at the rate study what kind of debt service dollars we're going to need to properly maintain the fleet. So,
Mr. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. So there is a way we can do this that you're comfortable.
The money's appropriated, I believe, in the budget already. So we're not going to have to pay for it until a year from now, maybe later. So at that, as I mentioned, we can issue the notes next year, combine them with the Chestnut Common Connector Road notes, and then the following year we'll start to make payments on the principal and interest. So.
Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a great idea because we'll be through a presidential election cycle and we'll have a better view of what's happening with recyclables in determination of glass, cardboard, all those things. So, so much hinges on what goes on in Washington. So I think that's a great idea.
Mr. Firestein, are you able to provide what measures you've already incurred to have this cost savings since we talked about it in February? Has some of that stuff been implemented so that we can see where the numbers are at now based on what Mr. Pileski has indicated?
Through the chair to members of the committee, what we spoke about early on before COVID hit, and that kind of delayed a lot of the chance to speak with Republic to try to find out through education, are there ways of working with our residents to try to find out ways to lessen the contamination. What we have done internally is have the drivers really review their routes and really determine and lessen the amount of loads that we take for recycling. That has cut down considerably, but that's still leading to some contamination loads. So I've recently spoken to Dave Kidder at Republic and trying to set up a time to visit with him to try to find out from their end what tips and tricks they've learned from their routes, since they cover a large area of what they have experienced. But you just saw what Overland did, so there might not be as much, but it's going to be some education that we need to do on our end for our residents to try to teach them what needs to be recycled. I had a conversation with a resident last week, informing her of the recycling market and why the costs have gone up, because certain countries are not accepting our recycling unless they meet certain conditions. That's what's driven this market. So trying to do more knowledge on our driver's part and try to lessen the contamination loads we are sending. So that's been one part, but the bigger part's going to be working with our residents and trying to educate them on how to lessen contamination. So we've done the first part. We got to do the second part, which is kind of going to be the biggest cost savings. COVID did put a damper on that. But that's one way of looking at it. And with the tricks that this guy is able to pull, Finance Director Plusky, being able to get that truck with the Chestnut Common connector buys us some time to kind of do that without impacting the rates, and then allows us to really address the rates as we move forward to figure out that. And we've also looked at some other alternative vehicles. We weren't ready right now, but we are looking at some alternatives as well to see how we can impact that and maybe look at that going forward. So we are looking at every unique idea that's out there to try to find a way to keep the rates the same and still provide the same great service.
Mr. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Yeah, all these things have been discussed. They're all great ideas, but it doesn't discard the fact that we need a new truck, and it's still going to take a year to get it. And we want to certainly keep pursuing the education and looking into the state of recycling. But like I said, right now, I just think we need to make a commitment to buy this truck.
Sure. So with that being said, the original motion was the purchase of a new sanitation truck. And was this going through the state purchasing? Is this going to go through, how would we proceed with the purchase of the vehicle? Yeah, I guess for the committee report and for the ordinance to be written.
I can answer that if you'd like. The truck will be purchased through the NJPA, through Best Equipment. We won't have to go out to bid on it because they're already a member of this association, and we'll get the best price anyway, if that answers your question.
Law Director Derry?
Yes, thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair, so again, correct me if I misspeak, but it is not a state purchasing, but it's a similar,
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Analogous program. Okay. I know, we speak in acronyms around here, and
yeah,
we like our alphabet soup, but that's what it is, yeah.
But Finance Director Plusky?
That being said, I think the ordinance should mention that, going through that program.
Yes.
And then next year, when it comes time to roll over the Chestnut Commons connector notes, I will come to council with the legislation to also borrow for the truck.
Yes.
Issue notes for the truck.
Okay.
We don't have to do that now because.
Right, we're not.
Yeah.
Mr. I, could you please repeat the association who would be purchased through so there were clarity?
NJPA? Yes, NJPA.
You know what that stands for? Something, do you know what it stands for?
I have that information. I can give it to you. Yeah. Yeah.
Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. And so this is just one truck, is that correct?
That's correct.
One truck. Is this the one-arm truck for pickup, or what truck is it?
Yes, it is the one-arm truck. It will be either used for garbage or recycling. They're interchangeable.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So they'll.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a question. I know that when we purchase through the state bid program, it alleviates the necessity to go out for bid. So is this, I mean, if we must have to, I think, mention this in the ordinance, or council may have to pass a separate ordinance to be a part of this program? I don't know. Have we purchased through this program before?
Can you
Yes.
confirm, we as a city are a member of this entity?
We're a member
We're
of
a
this
member,
entity,
I'm
Rodney?
sorry?
Yes, we currently are.
Okay. So yes, so then basically it is essentially as though we were going through the state purchasing program under Ohio law.
So just to confirm, Law Director Deary, it will be a part of the ordinance that, you know, once this comes before full council, I'll spell all that out. So I guess I need to amend, just because we didn't have clarity on that. The purchase of a new sanitation truck, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of a sanitation truck to be paid through the Best Equipment NJPA Association.
I'm sorry, it'll be purchased through,
Purchased.
paid through. I think literally the $1 million question is what it's going to be paid.
Purchased through
From.
the Best Equipment.
Yes.
To be paid from the sanitation fund, sanitation department, capital outlay account.
Does the motion concur with what was being discussed through the finance director, Mr. I, the law director? I just want to make sure we're getting this language right instead of we're just here speaking to it here in.
To me, yes, I agree with that, and I believe it should be passed as an emergency so we can place the order without waiting 30 days, because we're still a year out.
Does everyone concur?
The motion concurs.
Does the second? Any further discussion?
Oh, for the question.
Does anybody have any further discussion?
Call the question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Unpaid utility bills, I haven't seen that.
Mr. Chairman, through you, on a related manner, I don't know if you guys saw this story in the paper back from the middle of August about Boy Gets birthday surprise from his superheroes, who was Rick Redpath, one of our sanitation. I'm going to go ahead and send this to everybody just in case you didn't see it. And I know in the past we've had exemplary employees brought in to be recognized at the beginning of council meetings. And I would love to see that happen next Tuesday with Mr. Redpath.
Okay. Well, I was going to speak to the law director in regards to, you know, as far as opening up to the council chambers to the public, but you know, that's something that I think we'd have to work through. With that, I think that'd be, you know, something special, but I want to make sure that we're all able to do what we can do. Item number 9, we've considered the matter of unpaid public utility bills, a resolution to certify the attached exhibit delinquent public utilities to the Lorraine County Auditor. Can I get a motion?
So move.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Baird, second by Ms. Davis. Ms. Connor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is a list provided that the Utilities Resolution Board approved to pass on 8/7/2020. They approved the list. It's provided in the total amount of $11,120.87.
Was there any questions for Ms. Connor? Further discussion? Ms. Davis?
Question, through you, Mr. Chair. So, since these outstanding utility bills Could some of this care program money be used for those people to pay their bills since they're delinquent? Isn't that available for them?
Turned off.
These accounts have been finalized and new people have bought these properties. These are inactive accounts.
We see where you're going with that. That's always a good thought, you know? Sure. Mr. Tolet, did you have anything you had wanted to weigh?
Was calling for the question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, we do have some appropriation changes. It's not listed on the agenda, but we do have some changes.
Okay, so you'll supply that, or we'll add it to this. We've considered item number 10. We've considered the matter of the 2020 permanent appropriations. An ordinance authorizing the amending the 2020-38 per the attached exhibit and per the recommendations of Finance Director Pileski or Mr. Farrell, who's coming up to speak to. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr.
Moved by
Chair.
Ms. Davis. Second by Mr. Tolet. Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's just two this evening. The Chestnut Commons TIF increased by 709,640, and excuse me. In the general fund, move the money in the payroll from the swimming pools to the building and lands in the amount of 93,750.
Mr. Chair, the Chestnut Commons, the bulk of that increase, 709,640, the bulk of that is excess TIF monies that have come in, and we will, according to the contract and the formula, that money will be going to the Midview Local School District. So the Chestnut Commons TIF is performing.
It's very well.
Has been and continues to perform very well.
Yes. Is there any, Ted, was there something more there, or is this what John just handed out as what's?
That was the first one on the list, but
Okay.
I just wanted,
Okay.
it's a large amount, so I just want.
Sure.
Apologize, trying to speak through this.
That's okay. No, that's okay, John.
Take it off.
Go ahead, Jeff. Is there any other further, Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, the swimming pool and splash pad, and then you moved it to building and land. What building and land?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, there's the 6 or 7 employees who are, part of their wages now are being paid from the local coronavirus fund. So, but not all of their work involves that. So the balance of their work, they were being paid out of the Building and Lands Department in the general fund. So essentially, since the pools and the splash pads are closed, I'm just moving the money out of that salary and wage line item into the Building and Land salary and wages and benefits to cover for the balance of this year the monies that aren't involved in payment for payroll with coronavirus relief related duties.
Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So are you saying that, and you probably wouldn't even know, is the buildings never going to open up this rest of the year? Or because if you move the money and then the buildings open up, or whoever's taking care of the property, you're going to have to move the money back?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, well, the pools are closed, so that's the only money we're moving. There still is money left in the other general fund, the Parks and Rec Department. There's money left in that in payroll There's a cemeteries department that there's monies left in that department within the general fund. So if that's the question is, yeah, for the people that, if they're being moved back into those departments and that's the duties that they're doing, for instance, the ice rink, if there's any employees that will be working out of the ice rink, those monies are still left in the ice rink. I don't have the dollar amounts in front of me, but there's money left in those departments sufficient enough to cover any of the work that's directly related to those departments.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Question?
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. If there's nothing more to come before this committee, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird. Second by Mr. Todd. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
This has been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.